Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update video, and this is a huge piece of news here with regards to Avatar. So we've sort of been expecting something big to happen, but I don't think anyone expected it to quite be this big. So here's what the news is. This is the core of the news. There's a few extra little bits I'll get into as we go through the video, but most of the announcement is centered around this. Paramount Plus here. The launch of Avatar Studios means that the fantastic universe of Avatar The Last Airbender will expand into new series, short-form content, spin-offs, and theatrical films on Paramount Plus. So, this came from the big Paramount Plus streaming event today. We knew it was coming, but not a lot of people I felt like were particularly confident that we were actually going to get any news out of this. And I'll cite this tweet I put up this morning. So you can see here, I put it up at 10 past 11 earlier on today. Just a quick poll, the event is happening today. Do you think we'll get an Avatar announcement today or not? And look at that, 39 votes, 0% of people saying definitely, 7.7% of people saying no chance, and then completely split down the middle of sort of, there's a chance positive and there's a chance but not likely, more on the negative side of things. So very interesting in that, like I talk in my tweet down here about how, it is a contrast of people now believing that something actually could happen compared to say 2014 when no one had any confidence that Mike and Brian would come back to do like a third series or anything like that. So at most I was expecting they'll casually mention that oh, there's more Avatar in the works or something like that. But for it to be as big as this, if you look into the details on some of the sites that have covered it, the first place I saw it was before they even got to it in the live stream. This article from Deadline came up. And so Nickelodeon is launching Avatar Studios, a division designed to create original content spanning the animated series and movies based on the franchise's world. Mike and Brian will return to this Nickelodeon, the studio, as co-creative officers, reporting to Ramsey Naito, president of Nickelodeon Animation. And they're going to be producing content for platforms including Paramount Plus and Nickelodeon and just, the whole Viacom, CBS infrastructure, whatever way you want to call it. And then the other, I suppose, main piece of news, where is it? The first project is an animated theatrical film that is set to start production later this year. So again, they're saying that Avatar Studios is going to be making new series, so that's great. Going back to the roots, we're getting an ATLA, a Legend of Korra type series, I guess. Short form content, I guess, like expected, probably means shorts. I don't know if it quite is going to mean chibi shorts or whatever, but I suppose it just means that we're going to be getting different formats of Avatar in action. I'm guessing it means that we'll probably see different types of animation. So I'm guessing the series and the theatrical films will have maybe the high quality animation. Maybe with the short form content we'll see more of the sort of webcomic style. We might see more of a sort of what kind of has been typical with some stuff more recently, maybe sort of CG maybe, or kind of flash style animation just for these shorter stuff. Spin-offs is kind of an interesting one with regards to what exactly does that mean in the context of they're calling it the universe of Avatar The Last Airbender. They're calling it Avatar Studios. So within this, is Korra considered a spin-off? Or is that considered a new series? Because, there's a distinction here made between series and spin-off. So, I don't know. To me, I suppose series is probably a thing where a series in the Avatar world probably has to focus on an Avatar or something like that. That's big. Spin-off, I guess, is probably going to be a series but focused on something else, like say a non-bender character or a character who's not the Avatar, a more focused in show, as people have suggested down the line. Maybe something a series that's more sort of pro-bending focused, where it kind of has a sports anime style feel to it. It's not really focused on villains coming in and stuff like that. It's just really focused on this one thing in the universe. And then films and the fact that film is the thing that they're doing first is very, very interesting. The big question and speculation is obviously going to be, what does that mean? What is this film going to be about? If you watched the live stream of the streaming event, nearly every time they referenced or showed something that was like Avatar related, it was ATLA. They specifically towards the start mentioned Avatar as basically being one of its like 5 or 6 really popular things they mentioned as like an IP that has been very successful on one of the other streaming platforms that, you know, they own the IP for, and so it's highly likely that they'll do spin-offs and stuff like that relating to those popular IPs. And then of course later on they made this big announcement. When they got to the animation section and the kind of kid section, again, they brought up Avatar a few times in like sizzle reels and stuff like that. They had the focus on Avatar: The Last Airbender studio. And really they only showed Korra, like, I think for like a second or two, once or twice. Which all leads me to say that, at least in my opinion, my guess is that this animated theatrical film probably will be ATLA related. It's the thing that I think makes the most sense. If they plan to launch this animated film in the theater, it kind of has to, I think, be related to the most popular aspect of the franchise, which is ATLA specifically. I think the best thing they could probably do here is make this sort of like the debut of a lot of the ATLA characters in their sort of primes. And what I mean by that is, say, like, Aang and Toph as like the youngest members of the team, have them at least be like 20 or like 25 or something like that, or maybe have them be adults and have them all be like 30 or something like that. But a movie set when the ATLA crew is older, tackle the stuff you've avoided for the last 7 years since Korra came to an end, and just do it all here. That way the designs, you're finally giving the fans what they want, but you avoid maybe some of the problems that might come along with maybe trying to make a series out of the characters when they're older, where the events might be a little bit more scattered rather than all occurring right after each other. Instead, just hit like, here's this major event that happened when the characters were in their mid-20s or something like that. I think that's the best way to draw people to go see this animated movie when it comes out, rather than maybe attempting to do something completely new and hope that the first project from Avatar Studios is a success, not being related to everything else. That's my guess. And that they'll have the new stuff more be the new series, new spin-offs, and stuff like that, the short form content, as the way to continue other stuff, tell stories related to stuff we already know, and do completely new things. What else do I have here? Variety, I think their article is roughly the same as the Deadline article. The EW one is slightly different in that they did get a kind of comment from Mike and Brian. So as you can see here, they again confirmed the first project is going to be an animated theatrical film set to begin production this year. And here we go. In an exclusive statement to EW, DiMartino and Konietzko expressed their excitement to develop our franchise and its storytelling on a vast scale, in myriad exciting ways and mediums. It's hard to believe it's been 19 years since we created Avatar: The Last Airbender, but even after all that time, there are still many stories and time periods in Aang's world that we are eager to bring to life. We are fortunate to have an ever-growing community of passionate Avatar fans that enjoys exploring the Avatar-verse as much as we do. And with this new Avatar Studios venture, we have an unparalleled opportunity to develop our franchise and its storytelling on a vast scale in myriad and exciting ways. And we're grateful to Brian Robbins, Ramsey Naito for their enthusiasm and respect for the Avatar property and us as its stewards. From the start, they've supported our ambitious plans and created a positive and proactive environment for us. We're excited to be back at Nickelodeon where Avatar began, doing what we do best in the biggest way possible. We can't wait to build the great teams and productions to make all this fantasy a reality. And the rest is pretty much just Avatar stuff and so on. And of course it's going to be on Paramount Plus, and so on. Excellent. And I found this EW article because Brian on Tumblr posted about it. He said Reich is back at Nickelodeon in a big way. Here's the quote, their official quote right now from the article. If you go to Instagram, they're basically quoting the same thing. Mike just says, big announcement, Brian and I are returning to Nickelodeon as co-chief creative officers of Avatar Studios. So that's their official title, is chief creative officers at this specific studio. So yeah, absolutely fantastic news here for Avatar fans. The only, I suppose, unfortunate thing is just that nothing like specific, nothing about characters or plots necessarily, but I suppose in Brian's Mike and Brian's statement here in the EW article, I think it's very exciting to see them say, where's the line I was looking for here? But even after 19 years, after all the time, there are still many stories and time periods in Aang's world that we're eager to bring to life. That is something that gives me a lot of confidence. That is Mike and Brian looking at their own world and thinking and realizing, look at the amount of gaps we have. Look at the amount of time periods we have not explored. That, again, let's get technical here for a second. The furthest back in the Avatar timeline we've gone is Avatar 1, which is set 10,000 years before Legend of Korra. And obviously that means we have the first Avatar, and Korra is the most recent Avatar. We know a bunch of the avatars in or around Korra a decent way back if you get into the weeds and go into like your Avatar Zetos and stuff like that, and even stretching it a little bit further and going into the Avatar that Hundun fought. Okay, we know about one extra one. Still leaves thousands of years to cover. And especially that time period, like immediately after one, that's really interesting. The world forming, the Avatar as a title, as a job, basically forming as the Avatar, goes through that first cycle. Really interesting. Not to mention the world before the Avatar, before that event. There's room to tell stories there as well. Pre-Avatar, just kind of world foundation type stuff, focusing more on the spirits, and then continuing things like post-Korra. You can always go forward as well. Of course, this speaks to the idea that there's more time periods that they want to explore, which may actually be the future, but I definitely would lean towards interpreting this as they're planning to go back initially rather than go forward. And then, of course, we know that the Kyoshi time period is also very, very popular after the novels. So I'm wondering if that sort of stuff relates to this as well. It does make me this answers our questions for sure about what's been going on with the Dark Horse comics. What's been going on with like the fact that they did those 2 books but then haven't announced any other novels. Well, here's the answer to, I suppose, why on the story side of things have been very slow. Announcements about new stuff hasn't really been coming in. This is why. This is why Mike and Brian made the decision to shift the Avatar comics away from continuing the story, because they don't want the comics to be covering something that they could cover as part of one of these projects. And I guess as the comics were basically, I suppose, just about to jump into some of the more important stuff, they want to show that in other material. Now, I still think they'll leave some stories for the comics and stuff like that to cover. But now that they have all of these opportunities and all of this support, why not use it? Why, leave a kind of important story to a comic when you can actually do a full-on project like this? And it's just very confidence inspiring. I think that it's got its own studio. It's not the Avatar shows being worked on by Nickelodeon. It's Avatar Studios. The people at Avatar Studios are the ones making the Avatar shows. Multiple projects and shows, and there's a whole team that they're forming here, and they're planning to storytell on a vast scale in multiple exciting ways and mediums, exploring different timelines and stuff like that. That is everything I've wanted from Avatar, and I've been talking about on the channel for all these years I've been doing YouTube, on the podcast. It's just an expansion like this, a sense of kind of more regular content than the comics have provided. The other thing that isn't really covered in all of this is just how good is the support here on all of this project? Is it just sort of business language, and it's still roughly the same situation they had during Avatar and Korra? I actually would feel that like a lot of this is actually truthful about like really being behind it, because if you listened and sort of dissected a lot of what just the Viacom CEOs and stuff like that were talking about in the early sections of the streaming event, before they even got into any of the announcements, they really went into this idea about how they want the platform to be big. They really want to hit home that this is going to be potentially like the best streaming platform ever. And so for them, it's all about content, content, content. They said the word content like 1,000,000 times. And in each section they got across, we're going to have special new content for all this stuff, plus an amazing library, including all the stuff that you really like. And I think the fact that they focused on Avatar, like more than anything else, like basically the animation section, when you break it down, was like SpongeBob and Avatar, like the two big pillars of Viacom in terms of like kids programming was that. Like I think the only other things that got like mentions alongside that was like Paw Patrol and Dora. So Avatar as being like a huge thing, and it was the only one of those things to get like its own studio. Speaks to like they know, they care about that if they get this right, they could have a whole sequence of shows that is going to be insanely popular. So this is just really, really exciting. I did not expect this as the announcement today. If anything, I maybe expected just the confirmation maybe of a third series like existing, but basically no information. Them just confirming that if you join our platform, you will get an Avatar series maybe at some point. That was about the most I expected from this. But now, the confirmation of, even if you take this as sort of minorly as possible, we are at the very least getting a movie, a new series, a short form content of some type. What's the exact wording? Just short form content. A spin-off, but they say multiple spin-offs. So, you know, that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like 8 things, because they say plural for all of them, at the very least. That is huge. And I just am a little bit speechless about this whole thing. It's just gone like so well. Again, it's early days. It's just a logo and some statements at the moment. But Mike and Brian are on board, and it seems like they have the backing that they didn't really get on the Netflix show. Which, by the way, I suppose after like the recent rumors about that, which I think were confirmed to not really be anything, who cares about the Netflix show anymore when this stuff is here? Now I know there'll probably be the sort of anti-Mike and Brian people out there who will see this as being a bit of a problem, that Mike and Brian are getting all this support, and you know, certain other people aren't, at least right now, confirmed to be involved. But look, they're going to have a whole studio here to make this happen, multiple projects, and the roles that they're in is going to be, I think, more as just overseers, and they'll play bigger roles in the bigger projects, but it does seem like they'll be getting people in to sort of execute on their vision, which is probably the kind of best use of them in a way. So I'm excited to see how this plays out when we start to hear word of like, okay, this movie that's coming up, what's it about? And let's get into speculation on that. I already covered a little bit about my thought process of like, I'm leaning towards it's going to be an ATLA movie. Now, I think what they're going to do, like I said, is either this will be the debut of the sort of prime years Team Avatar, or they'll do the Zuko's Mom movie they kind of maybe always wanted to make. Which maybe brings up the point of like, oh, is that going to be a direct adaptation of The Search, or are they going to go down their own path a little bit with that? I'm not entirely sure. I think people would appreciate that important story being told as a movie. it definitely would get people invested, because it is like a mystery presented right at the end of the show. What happened to my mother? Where's my mother? So covering the movie like they kind of always planned to was a sort of good idea. But at this point, the amount of years that have passed, the fact that the story is out there and has been out there for a certain amount of time speaks to, tell something new. Bridge the gap finally, cover something happening. Like early days of Republic City, some incident happens, a villain, and I think a movie is the perfect way to do that. Then you get to cover the characters' dynamics as they're older. You can potentially do some of the reveals, like finally after all of these years, confirm to us, is Mei like Izumi's mother? Confirm to us like Sokka, Suki, what's going on there, kids of characters and so on, what's the dynamic, all that sort of stuff. Beyond that, like I don't really know. As I said, I think as the first project, I'd be a little bit questioning about if it's going to be something new necessarily. Is there value in perhaps doing like a new Avatar we've never really heard anything about and like focusing on it that way? Maybe. Kyoshi movie. Perhaps they know people like Kyoshi, but is that just the more sort of hardcore side of the fan base being very vocal about liking Kyoshi more so than on a broad scale? Again, it's a movie here released in the theaters. That's why I would lean towards it. It'd probably make the most sense for something ATLA related. But still, a lot of the other questions I suppose would basically be animation studios and stuff like that. Who are they getting on board for this? Are we going to get Studio Mir back or not? And I'd love to see Studio Mir do like animated film animation quality. Like, can you imagine them doing a movie and just getting to like the big fight scene where my guess is you'll do it in a way where like it's like a typical sort of animated type movie type thing where the characters will all get their big chance to shine, do their giant bending moves to finish the fight, and they just get their really high quality animation sequence. I would love to see that Avatar with that level of budget. New series is great, short form content always interesting, and we'll see how I suppose they incorporate books and stuff like that into things. Does this affect the Dark Horse deal? Does this impact the Abrams books deal at all? Because they're very much talking here about sort of animation, like moving and like, visual media and stuff like that. What about the other stuff? Interesting stuff for sure. But the final thing I'll say is just that I can't remember if I said this on recording on the podcast on Sunday or if it was in the discussion that myself and Greg had after the podcast, but it was something along the lines of, when I was giving my thoughts on this event, basically the streaming event, I said something along the lines of, I'd be surprised if we come back and we have a podcast next week and we're talking about the third Avatar series. And now, a few days later, it's just kind of like, we're talking about like the third, fourth, fifth, sixth Avatar series and like multiple movies and spin-offs and stuff like that. Really, really incredible. Right now, like, there's not enough information to really, like, I think have anything particularly, like, negative to say about this or anything like that. Probably just the fact that there isn't really a detail as such. If they had announced even the basic premise of, like, the movie, of just, like, there's going to be a theatrical movie featuring the ATLA characters or something like that, just a sense for one of our things that we are making is about this. That would have been really nice to go along with it. But it's a great early announcement. And it's going to start production later this year. And what that means is that I guess anything coming out of this studio we are not going to see until probably late 2022 or early 2023. Especially with a movie like that's going to be like an hour plus of high quality animation that they have to do pre-production work on and stuff like that, get an animation studio involved, go through all of that process, and you're setting up a new studio at the same time to make all these other projects go. There's going to be stuff that happens along the way, but this is really, really interesting. The one maybe thing that maybe just like slightly brings things down is like, okay, let's say end of 2022, early 2023 for the first thing out of the studio. What do we see between now and then? Like, what is the next 2 years of Avatar as we kind of wait for this stuff to happen? Like, what's going with the comics? Are we going to get any more novels? That sort of stuff. Like, to hold us off until then. Because, like, the series is at this, like, extra level of popularity now. And it will maintain. The hype based around this announcement and how much extra stuff that there's going to be will maintain until the stuff actually comes out. But between now and then, what do you have? It definitely takes a lot of pressure off, for instance, like the next Korra comic when they announce it. It doesn't have to be the be-all end-all now, but it still would want it to be good. And definitely the comics feel like, oh, okay, cool. We can do the one-shots, but yeah, can you maybe give us something a little bit more interesting? It's not as dire anymore, but I still would like to know, between now and 2023, what are we actually getting? Because if it's only going to start production later this year, that means we're only going to find out the idea of what this movie is basically towards the end of the year, if not more into 2022. And then in terms of seeing visuals and stuff like that from it, it probably won't be until mid 2022. So we've got a year and a bit of, we probably won't hear a lot about this, I guess. And that's the thing to get through. So that's the one thing that might slightly dampen excitement about this, and that we can only be so excited about something so off into the future for so long. We have to focus on, like, okay, what's coming up next? We've got the Suki comic in June, but what after that? But yeah, Avatar Studios, very, very exciting. I'll probably do another video on camera tomorrow to give more thoughts on this. It's obviously after midnight right now, and I don't want to set up the camera and stuff like that to do a video so late, so that explains the reaction here. And yeah, I just want this to be sort of an initial reaction thing, and that this has just been announced within the last hour. This is how I'm feeling at the moment, just all these thoughts going through my head, because all of a sudden everything and anything is possible within the Avatar universe, and any worries I had about, like, oh, if the announcements don't happen, things are going to go bad, all gone. Sort of negativity about the direction of the comics suddenly doesn't mean as much anymore. So yeah, they're my thoughts, initial thoughts on this major Avatar announcement. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts are. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.